What's the main job of the brain? So have a little think for a second, what you think that is. So the main job is to manage the body's energy resources and to predict any sort of threat. So managing and keeping in balance all the body's systems. And you can think of that as body budgeting. So to explain this a bit more, consider that energy efficiency is a key to survival. And energy efficiency is like a budget. So as a financial budget tracks money as it's earned and spent, a budget for your body similarly tracks resources like water, salt, and glucose as you gain and lose them. And each action that spends resources, like, say, swimming or running, is like a withdrawal from your account. And actions that replenish resources, like eating and sleeping, are like deposits. And every action you take or don't take is an economic choice. So running a body requires biological resources, and your brain is guessing when to spend resources and when to save them. So notice the word guessing here. I'm going to come back to that. The scientific name for body budgeting is allostasis, and it means automatically predicting and preparing to meet the body's needs before they arise. This is where it all gets a little bit interesting. So prediction is a crucial part of the interoceptive network. So before we really unpick the idea of prediction, I just want us to have a look at interoception. So any movement of your body is accompanied by movement in your body, such as an increase in heart rate or breathing or blood vessel dilation or whatever. And your brain represents the sensations that result from inner motion, and that's interoception. You know, sort of to escape from a charging lion, your heart pumps blood faster through dilated blood vessels and gets glucose into your muscles, and that increases your heart rate and changes your blood, which increases your heart rate, I suppose, and changes your blood pressure. And your brain represents those sensations, that inner motion, and that's called interoception, and it's continuous. And proprioception is a part of your interoceptive network. So it's actually a whole brain process, but several regions work together in a special way that's critical for interoception. And these regions form what's called an interoceptive network. And interestingly, it's intrinsic in your brain. So like your networks for vision, hearing, and your other senses. The interoceptive network does this. It issues predictions about your body, and it tests the resulting simulations against sensory input from your body. This is all very interesting. We'll go over this again in a second. And it updates your brain's model of your body in the world. So mostly you're unaware of all the movements that are internal, and the nervous system's not built for you to experience those movements with any precision. Otherwise, you'd be overwhelmed. So usually interoception is experienced in general terms as pleasure and displeasure, and arousal and calmness. So it's pleasant or it's unpleasant, you're calm or activated, and arousal and valence, those two things are called. And all of this is called affect. And sometimes you have intense interoceptive sensations, and you experience those as emotions. So all the time you're awake, your brain's giving your sensations meaning, and some of those sensations are interoceptive sensations, and the resulting meaning that your brain gives those sensations can be an instance of emotion. The brain constantly uses past experiences to predict which objects and experiences, whatever, will impact your body budget. And these objects and events are collectively called your affective niche. I'm going to suggest that we can alter our past experiences by cultivating peaceful events, which become our new past experiences, if you see what I mean. But let's just jump on now and look at how prediction works. So your brain, as we said, has to explain your bodily sensations to make them meaningful. It mainly does prediction, uses prediction to do this. So it means that your brain models the world from the perspective of someone with your individual body. And prediction is a crucial part of the interoceptive network. So let's just have a little look at the process of prediction. So your brain's constantly running prediction loops, which are predicting the energy needs for your body, which will be what we said before, the body budget. And there's billions running all the time, interestingly, whether or not there is stimuli. Your brain, this is really interesting, is not reacting to stimuli, but stimuli hold the loops in check. So basically what happens is it's always making lots of predictions, your brain, in order to balance your body budget, you know, balancing your body's energy resources and keeping you safe. And it uses past experiences to estimate how likely each prediction is true. There, and then it tests these predictions by comparing them to incoming sensory input. But this might confirm your predictions. However, there might be an error. And in which case, then these are the brain's error correction options. So it can change its predictions to respond to the data. It can selectively choose data that fits its predictions. It can ignore the data entirely and maintain that its predictions are reality. Or you can focus on the input and enter a state of learning and discovery. So in other words, I suppose you could say shit happens and then you start predicting shit based on the shit that happened before. But when you're a baby, this process was really rapid because the human embryo has twice as many neurons as the adult brain needs. And each neuron has around double the numbers of connections, which is pretty amazing when you remember those figures for how many neurons we've got and how many connections each one has. So there's then a sort of process, can be called tuning and pruning of these young developing brains. And so the brain creates connections that are useful and it loses unused connections. So it's a time when input from the environment, and especially from primary caregivers, plus the growth and activity of the body, determines the basic wiring of the child's brain. And this is like, pretty sort of important thing for us to know. And I think as parents and caregivers, but as teachers, and there's also periods in early childhood, which some people call them critical learning periods. And there's one supposed to be between the ages of 2 and 7, when again, there is far more neural connections than later in life. And this process is again really strongly activated. And this is a crucial time for laying down a sort of basic wiring of the brain. And when the tuning and pruning happens and a lot of the neurons then are lost, it's not impossible, but it is a bit more difficult then to change that basic wiring that's been put down when you're a young child, which is why when we get to sort of the whole emotional thing, you'll see that it's really crucial that those years for the development of emotional intelligence. So just to finish this, there's also the possibility of imagination. You can imagine the world, and that's just simulation without any any sensory input or a prediction error. Interesting to understand about prediction is to look at what would happen without it. And according to Guy Leschner, there are three insurmountable problems, he reckons. There's an inherent delay of sensory information before it reaches the brain, which means that whatever we perceive, it's already happened. There's not enough nervous system bandwidth. We just don't have the bandwidth to convey every single bit of sensory signal to our brains, and our brains don't have the power to process it. And sensory information is ambiguous. To resolve that, it needs a best guess. So let's have a quick look at this summary. So there's a continuous process inside you called interoception. Interoception is experienced as pleasure, displeasure, arousal, calmness, pleasant, unpleasant, aroused or calm. And that's called affect. And affect is a fundamental aspect of consciousness, like loudness and brightness. And sometimes you experience moments of intense interoceptive sensations as emotions. And the purpose of interoception isn't for you to have feelings as such, but it's to regulate your body budget. And your brain must explain bodily sensations to make them meaningful, and it mainly uses prediction to do this. Your brain's not reacting to stimuli from the outside world, and your brain will prioritize or ignore sensory inputs. And your brain's constantly predicting your body's energy needs, like a budget for your body.